The word please didn't fall from her mouth so much as break loose from her chest, thin and ragged, as if it had scraped its way out. Dust hung in the air around them, lit by the slanting late afternoon sun, and for a moment Caleb Mercer thought the sound of her begging might drift off across the prairie and disappear like everything else out here. But it didn't. It stayed. It pressed against him. "Please," she said again, closer now, her hands gripping the front of his coat as if the fabric were the only solid thing left in the world. "I'm begging you." Caleb looked down at her fingers. They were shaking. Mary Callahan had grown up on this land same as he had. She'd buried a husband, survived winters that killed cattle by the hundreds, and faced down men with guns when the bank tried to take her place. He had never once seen her like this. Not folded inward, not pleading. He turned his gaze back to the well. It squatted in the middle of the clearing like a broken tooth, stones blackened by age and moisture, the wooden frame half rotted and leaning. Someone, probably his father, years ago, had nailed boards across the opening when the water turned bad. Time and weather had chewed through them. One board lay snapped on the ground. Another hung crooked, dangling by a rusted nail. From below came a sound that didn't belong to stone or water. A small, uneven breath. Caleb's jaw tightened. "I said I'd help," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "I just need to think." "There's no time to think," Mary said. Her voice cracked, and she pressed her forehead briefly against his arm as if the weight of the moment had finally bent her. "It's getting darker. And I can hear him. He's scared. I can hear it." Caleb crouched and leaned over the edge, peering down into the well's throat. Darkness swallowed the light just a few feet in, turning the inside into a black, breathing thing. He could smell damp earth and old iron. His stomach twisted. "How far did he fall?" he asked. "I don't know," Mary said. "He was chasing the chicken. The ground just gave way." Caleb closed his eyes for a second. The prairie was full of hidden mouths like this, places the land opened up and swallowed whatever stepped wrong. He'd warned folks for years not to come near the old well. He'd meant to fill it in. He always meant to. He stood and shrugged out of his coat, laying it aside. The sun was slipping lower now, bleeding orange into the horizon. "Get the rope," he said. Mary was already moving, running toward the wagon with a kind of frantic grace. Caleb tested the stones around the well, pressing his weight down carefully. Some shifted. He swore under his breath and repositioned himself where the ground felt firmer. Mary returned, breathless, dragging the coil of rope behind her. "It's all I could find," she said. "Is it enough?" Caleb took it from her hands, running it through his fingers. "Frayed in places, but strong enough if the knots held. It'll have to be." He looped the rope around his waist and tied it off twice, pulling until it bit into his hips. He tested it again, then looked at Mary. "You hold the other end," he said. "Wrap it around the wagon axle. If I slip, don't let go." Her eyes widened. "Caleb, I mean it," he said sharply. "No matter what you hear. No matter what I say. You don't let go." She nodded, tears streaking clean lines through the dust on her face. She moved to the wagon, wrapped the rope tight, and braced herself. Caleb lay flat on his stomach, chest pressed to the dirt. The earth was warm from the day's heat, but a chill crept up his spine anyway. He edged forward until his shoulders were over the opening, stones digging into his ribs. He took a breath, then slid his right arm down into the well. The air changed instantly, cold, wet. His fingers brushed rough stone, slime slick beneath his palm. He stretched farther, muscles trembling as his shoulder scraped against the edge. Pebbles rattled loose and clattered down into the dark. "It's all right," he called, forcing steadiness into his voice. "I'm here. You hear me?" A faint sound answered him, half sob, half gasp. Mary knelt beside him, clutching the rope. "He hears you," she said. "I know he does." Caleb reached deeper. His arm burned. His fingertips went numb from the cold. The well seemed to narrow, the stones closing in as if resenting his intrusion. "I can't see you," he said into the dark, "but I'm coming. You just stay still." His fingers brushed something soft. He jerked reflexively, heart lurching, then forced himself to hold steady. He reached again, slower this time. Warmth. Not stone. Not rope. Living warmth. Caleb's breath caught. His mind raced through a dozen useless thoughts. Animal, maybe, or some scrap of cloth heated by trapped air, but none of them fit. The thing beneath his fingers shifted slightly, and a sharp, frightened inhale echoed up the well. Caleb froze. For a moment, the world narrowed to that single point of contact, that impossible truth pressing against his skin. He could feel the tremor there, feel fear vibrating through something small and fragile. Caleb, Mary whispered, "What is it? Did you find him?" He swallowed hard. His mouth had gone dry. I found something," he said, choosing each word like it might break if handled wrong. "I'm not sure." Another breath from below, closer now, panicked. "It's a child," he said hoarsely. "It's his hand." Mary let out a sound that was half prayer, half sob. "Thank God," she breathed. "Thank God." Caleb closed his eyes, pressing his forehead briefly into the dirt. Relief surged through him so hard it almost made him dizzy. Then fear followed close behind. Knowing what it was didn't make the task easier. It made it heavier. "Listen to me," he called down, his voice gentler now. "I've got you. I'm not going to let you go. Do you understand?" The small hand tightened around his fingers with surprising strength. Caleb felt it like a vow. The grip tightened, sudden and fierce, and the shock of it sent a jolt up Caleb's arm. It wasn't the weak, slipping touch he'd half expected. It was desperate, clinging, full of a strength that came from terror and the refusal to disappear into the dark. His fingers closed around the small hand instinctively, thumb bracing the wrist, careful not to hurt, careful not to let go. "I've got you," he said again, louder now, the words steady even as his muscles trembled. "You're not alone. You hear me, you're not alone." The child made a sound that might have been a yes, might have been a sob. It echoed strangely off the stone, warped and magnified until it sounded like more than one voice. Caleb fought the urge to rush. Rushing was how mistakes happened. Rushing was how people slipped. He shifted his weight slightly, testing the rope at his waist. It held firm. He could feel Mary on the other end, braced and ready, her whole body committed to that single line of hemp between them. The sun dipped lower, and the light inside the well thinned to a dull gray. "Can you move?" Caleb asked the dark. "Just a little." The child whimpered, then there was a scrape, the sound of skin against stone. Caleb felt the hand slide, then jerk as the child panicked. "It's all right," he said quickly. "Slow. I'm right here." He adjusted his grip, hooking 2 fingers around the child's wrist, spreading his hand to support as much as he could. He began to pull, inch by careful inch, using his legs and back, letting the rope take some of the strain. Pain flared across his shoulder, sharp and immediate, but he ignored it. Pain was temporary. Letting go wasn't. "Caleb," Mary said behind him, voice tight with fear. "The rope. Tell me if it's holding," he said. "Just stay ready." The stones groaned as the child's arm came free up to the elbow. A shower of grit fell, stinging Caleb's face. He spat dust from his mouth and kept pulling. The child cried out then, a thin, breaking sound that cut straight through him. "I know," Caleb said softly. "I know it hurts. Just a little more." He felt fabric now, a sleeve soaked through with mud and cold water. The child's shoulder bumped against the narrow curve of the well, stuck for a moment. Caleb's heart slammed. "You're caught," he said, thinking aloud. "That's all right. We can fix that." He shifted again, pressing his chest harder into the ground to change the angle. The rope bit deeper into his waist. His muscles shook with effort. Slowly, the resistance eased. "There," he murmured. "That's it." The shoulder slid free. Then a head emerged into the fading light, hair plastered to a small skull, face streaked with mud and tears. The child gasped, dragging in air like he'd forgotten how breathing worked. Mary screamed his name and surged forward, but Caleb snapped, "Wait." Not taking his eyes off the well. Not yet. With one final pull, he dragged the child fully clear and rolled onto his side, cradling the small, shaking body against his chest. The boy, because now Caleb could see it was a boy, clutched at his shirt, burying his face there, coughing and sobbing all at once. Mary was on them in an instant, falling to her knees, hands fluttering uselessly until she found the boy's back and held him too. "Oh my God," she whispered over and over. "Oh my God, you're alive." Caleb lay there for a moment, staring up at the darkening sky, chest heaving. The shock hit him then, cold and heavy. His arm throbbed. His hands were scraped raw, bleeding in places he hadn't felt yet. He didn't care. The boy clung to him like he might vanish if he loosened his grip. Caleb shifted carefully and sat up, keeping one arm around the child. "You're safe now," he said, quieter, meant just for the boy. "It's over." The boy shook his head weakly, tears soaking into Caleb's shirt. "It was dark," he whispered. I thought. I know," Caleb said. "But you're out. You did good. You held on." Mary brushed the boy's hair back from his forehead with trembling fingers. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked. "Thomas," he whispered. Caleb closed his eyes briefly. Thomas. A name. A life that had almost been swallowed by a forgotten hole in the ground. They wrapped the boy in Caleb's coat, and Mary held him while Caleb struggled to his feet. His legs felt unsteady, like they belonged to someone else. He walked back to the well and stared down into it, the darkness staring back, indifferent as ever. "I should have filled it in," he said quietly. Mary looked up at him, her face streaked with tears but fierce now. "You pulled him out," she said. "That's what matters." Caleb nodded, though the weight in his chest didn't ease. He picked up a loose board and dragged it back over the opening, covering it as best he could until it could be dealt with properly. No more waiting. No more maybes. When he turned back, Mary was rocking Thomas gently. The boy's breathing had steadied, though his hands still fisted in her dress. "Can you stand?" Mary asked him. Thomas nodded, shakily. Caleb helped him to his feet, keeping a hand on his shoulder. The boy swayed, then steadied. As they walked toward the wagon, the prairie around them seemed unchanged, wide, quiet, endless. The wind whispered through the grass as if nothing remarkable had happened at all. But Caleb knew better. He glanced down at his hands again, still trembling, still bearing the faint warmth of another human being who had almost been lost. In this land, where the earth could open without warning and the dark waited just beneath your feet, sometimes all that stood between life and nothing was a single grip and the will not to let go. As the last light faded from the sky, Caleb Mercer knew he would remember that feeling for the rest of his days.